Would you like to be a millionaire? If so, this video is for you. Today, we're going to show you the 8 habits of millionaires. If you adopt at least 3 of these 8 habits, you too can become rich. These habits could be the difference that sets millionaires apart from those who have no money at all. Have you ever noticed that millionaires or billionaires around the world have very similar characteristics and behaviors? But what do these people have in common that allows them to achieve such great results? Is it possible for ordinary people to achieve such results? Well, the truth is that they are all ordinary people, and most of them came from very different backgrounds than they live today. What we need to do is model these behaviors, adapt them to our reality, and seek their results. Embark now on this journey towards excellence. You wouldn't want to miss this, so if you want to be rich, comment, "So I copied the habits of the rich." Just comment, "I copied the habits of the rich." When I see this comment, I will give it a like because I know you will achieve everything you want in your life. Now that you've commented, let's continue. First of all, I would like you to think about something. How different would your life be if you simply hadn't given up on what you gave up years ago? How different would your life be now? Today, we will talk about the 8 things that successful people do and unsuccessful people don't. I strongly believe that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create a new model of success because what works has already been written. What you need is to know how to model those who have been successful. If someone did it, you can too. And the first time this caught my eye was when I was younger and read a book called Think and Grow Rich. I realized that it doesn't matter where I was born, what my circumstances were. What matters is that I put the right pieces in place to create the life of wealth I always dreamed of. And if I do that, I will eventually get what I want. But since we're talking about success, what is success to you? Success is something very relative. It can mean something different to you than it does to me. It can mean joy, peace, happiness, a big family, cars, travel, clothes, freedom. Whatever it is, it's different for each person. But when I look at everything in life, I realize that everything in life has stages to be successful. Success can mean many different things to different people, but I'm going to go over 8 different things I've seen in people who have been successful in their lives. Success for me is having maximum freedom. Freedom to do what I want, when I want, with whoever I want, without worrying about money and not having to give up something or buy something for lack of money. This is success for me. And for you, what is success for you? The first thing I find in many successful people, not all, but 80% of them, is the habit of waking up early. Not just once or occasionally, but consistently waking up early every day and having some kind of morning routine. So when I was researching this, I thought, let me see what time successful people wake up. And then I found people like Richard Branson, who is a multimillionaire, wakes up at 4:30 every morning. Tim Cook, who is a multimillionaire, wakes up at 4:30 every morning. Howard Schultz, who is the guy who started Starbucks, wakes up at 5 every morning. I'm not saying you have to wake up at these times, but the reason they wake up at these times is that they have time for themselves, whether it's to read, journal, exercise. They have time to be intentional, to become who they want to be. They follow a routine. They do it before they go to work. They have thousands of employees, and yet they wake up early every day to have more time for themselves. In the early hours of the day, they take care of themselves. Have you spent any time taking care of yourself? Imagine if you could try this and wake up at least an hour earlier and spend that hour with yourself instead of watching Netflix or watching sports. If you cut that hour at night and go to bed an hour earlier, wake up an hour earlier and spend some time with yourself, what would that be like for you? So ask yourself, do you feel like you're waking up early enough now to have time specifically dedicated to yourself and your own development? If the answer is no, I would recommend adding this to your life. When you wake up early, you have peace. Nobody bothers you at that time because the people who complain all day are all sleeping at that time. Even the air is purer at that time. The atmosphere is lighter because there is no one complaining about life at that time. There is no one cursing. Everything is peaceful. But when 7 o'clock arrives, the atmosphere changes. By this time, there are already people complaining about life again, the air is polluted again, and everything bad starts to happen again. Isn't it terrible? Try this for at least 5 days, and carefully observe these points I just mentioned, and you will see that I am right. The second thing I found really interesting is that millionaire people read almost every day. There's an article that came out a few years ago saying that the average CEO reads about 60 books a year. 60 books a year. Which means the average CEO, who's at the top of his company, the highest in his industry, reads 60 books a year. That's more than a book a week. So you have to ask yourself, how many books am I reading? How much am I really trying to learn? How much am I really trying to grow and trying to learn from some of the most successful people who ever lived. The beauty of life is that everything you want to learn about anything, from self-development to high mastery of religion and spirituality, and especially about wealth, all these subjects, all the books have already been written that you might want to read from some of the smartest people who ever lived. Why don't you just start reading these books? How often do you read? And if you set a goal of how many books you would like to read per month, figure out that number, write it down, and start following it. The third thing they do is exercise consistently. They understand that there is a mind-body connection. If your body is not in the right place, there is a good chance your mind is not either. Your mind and your body have a constant connection all the time. A good example of this is if you eat something very heavy in the middle of the day, you feel very tired after lunch. Have you experienced this before? You know that feeling of being in the middle of the day and feeling very tired and immediately craving coffee? And this may not be a natural feeling. It may be because you are eating something that is making you feel that way. And when I say they exercise consistently, it's because they understand that when you exercise consistently in the morning or at night, whatever the case may be, your body will start to create more energy throughout the day. And the more energy you have throughout the day, the more energy you will have to achieve your goals, whatever they may be. So one of the things they do consistently is exercise 4 times a week, and they are always on the move. How many times a week do you exercise? Leave your comment there. The fourth thing is to consistently write down your goals. Also in the 70s, Harvard did a study on people who were graduating from Harvard with an MBA. Of this graduating class, only 3% of them actually wrote down their goals. And then, 10 years later, in the 1980s, they did a follow-up with all of these people and found that the 3% who wrote down their goals with pen and paper were 10 times more successful than all the other 97% combined. So 3% of the people who wrote down their goals were 10 times more successful than the other 97%. The truth is that it becomes real when you write it down with pen and paper. It becomes physical in this world. It becomes something you see and something you can work on. And a lot of times people set goals and never write them down, and it never works. They will never work on their goals to figure out how to achieve them, which really is the biggest obstacle to people not achieving their goals. But the example I would like to give is like, if I gave you a multiplication problem, look at this example. You know how to do the math in your head, 129 x 47. Most people listening right now wouldn't be able to do this in their heads, but if I gave you a piece of paper and a pen and told you exactly the same number, you could figure it out by doing the multiplication you learned in 4th grade or 3rd grade. So when you can take something out of your head and put it on a piece of paper and start working with it, that process makes things that are difficult much easier to achieve. When you consistently write down your goals every day and work with them the same way you would build a business plan, when you go to make a business plan, you don't do it in your head, you write it all down. When you practice this process, you start to get more clarity about exactly what you want. Ask yourself, how often do you write down your goals? And if it's not often, maybe you should just develop the practice of writing down your goals every day and working with them every day, making it part of your journaling practice. Comment like this: from today, I write down my goals. The 5th thing millionaires do is have mentors. I read an article years ago that said the person who becomes a millionaire, on average, has 7 mentors before becoming a millionaire. So if you're out there and you're looking around and thinking, I don't have a mentor, the reason this is important is because they can shorten your learning curve, condense 20 years of knowledge and experience into 2 years for you. That's the importance of hiring a coach. A mentor is someone who is further along in the process than you, who has already done what you want to do and has already made the mistakes that you would eventually make. If you just learned from them, you can shorten your learning curve, not have to go through their mistakes, and at the same time, see exactly what you need to do to get where you want to go. I have a friend who I recently befriended, and she runs a business in the same industry as mine, but hers makes 50 million a year and mine makes 5 million a year. She is light years ahead of me. What does she know that I don't? How can I learn from her? What does she do that I don't do yet? How can I bring the value she has in her business to my business? How can we help each other? It's fantastic when you start to stick to this new habit. You start taking a shortcut to where you want to go because you're connecting with people who already have the keys to it. When you start having mentors, find out what it's like to be able to help someone who is further along in the process than you, and also be helped by someone who is further along in the process than you. There are 2 different types of mentors that I always talk about. Number 1 is paid and number 2 is free, and you can figure out which one is best for you. I have many friends who are great mentors to me and I don't pay them anything. We have meetings and help each other. They are free mentors. But they don't feel obligated to make me succeed. They want me to succeed, but there is no obligation on their part for me to succeed. But I have had mentors who were paid, and when you pay someone, there is more of a sense of obligation, and there is a more consistent meeting process. I am always with my mentors every week. They have a certain obligation for my success to happen because I am paying them. Of course, I need to be 100% dedicated to that success. You can have a paid or free mentor, but the important thing is to have someone who can guide you and give you the keys to open the doors you need to get where you want to go. The sixth habit that I always find in these people is positive self-talk. We are all born positive people, but the world kind of destroys that within us, and we have to refine that positivity. You're not going to wake up every day super excited to face the day, but how can you start talking to yourself in a way that motivates you to start moving forward and taking more action? How can you start talking and empowering yourself? I want you to understand that it is difficult to be successful in this world. It is even more difficult when you have someone constantly talking in your ear. You have your own eyes speaking in your mind all the time. How can you build a positive self-talk system to be more intentional with all the conversation you have inside your own head? I'll give an example of an experiment we did. We took a container and filled it with soil, lots of soil. Then we took a glass of water and poured it into this container. The truth is that nothing changed. But if you take a garden hose and put that garden hose on, and it's flowing and flowing constantly, eventually the garden hose will move so much water that it will end up removing all the dirt. That dirt equates to all the negative thoughts inside your head. It's not about thinking positive sometimes or having some positive thoughts. You'll have to brainwash yourself to be positive every day. When I realize I'm slipping and saying something negative, I walk away. So you have to ask yourself, what part of me needs to be improved? Cultivate positive thoughts so that negative thoughts can be pushed away. The seventh thing is, they don't worry about failure. Failure does not exist in the mind of a successful person. Failure doesn't exist until you've completely given up on something. These people have failed more times than you and still succeeded. Success is simply outlasting everyone in your industry because most people will give up along the way. Most of your competitors will give up, and I guarantee it. So if you just don't stop, you will eventually acquire the skills, acquire the knowledge, and everything you need to be more successful than everyone else out there. If you make the decision in your head, no matter what happens, no matter how many times you fall, no matter how many times you think negative, no matter how many times you speak, the only difference is that millionaires don't let their failures get in the way of the success that's to come. They don't let their failures stop them from following the path they're on. The destination remains the same, they just keep going. Sometimes people don't achieve success in life because they are afraid of failure. That way they never try anything. This is the secret formula for failure. Do nothing. See how interesting? People don't try for fear of failing and do nothing. And because they do nothing, they end up failing. Let me know if you made it to the end of this video. Comment like this. The secret to success is to keep moving forward from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. When I see this comment, I will give you a little heart because I know you are someone who really wants to be successful in life. And to further enhance your learning, I will leave on your screen now a video that will guide you on how to get out of poverty and become rich in a few months. Click on it and go watch now.